A lot of Americans right now feel like this country has been turned into an extraction machine. Everything costs more, work pays less than it should, the people at the bottom keep losing ground, like food assistance, healthcare costs, wages that don't match the work, and the people at the top keep finding ways to get paid twice. And that feeling is very real. And in many cases, history has seen this before, but today I want to focus on March 25th, 1911. You see, there was a place called the Triangle Waist Company that occupied the top floors of a 10-story building in Lower Manhattan and employed something like 500 workers, mostly young Italian and Jewish immigrants. These were mostly women and girls. And that Saturday afternoon, a fire broke out in the 8th floor, and the flames were fed by mounds of cotton and paper waste, so it spread really fast. Firefighters arrived, but their ladders only reached partway up the building. And the building had one inadequate fire escape that collapsed during the rescue effort as people tried to get out. So many workers that were trapped by locked exits and blocked routes and escape systems that failed them, leapt from windows to their deaths. And there were then 123 women and girls and 23 men who perished in the fire. They were mostly, as I said, young immigrant workers, Italian and Jewish mostly. It took several days for their family members to identify the victims because many of them had been burned beyond recognition. Now, this was 146 people that were dead. And here's the part of all this that I want to talk about today and why I think it's important. The dangers were visible. The company had received warnings. The building was treated as though it was fireproof for some reason. And the owners still refused basic protections like sprinklers in a factory like this. So the danger was known. And of course, the workers paid the price. That was a choice with literally life and death consequences. And then there was a criminal trial that ended the worst possible way. The factory owners were indicted on manslaughter charges and they were acquitted in December 1911. And then the owners collected insurance payouts that exceeded their property losses. And then there was a civil case that came along, and the plaintiffs were awarded $75 per deceased victim, which accumulated to be far less than the owners collected through their insurance payout. The criminal system looked at 146 dead workers and still let the owners walk free. Now here's the other part. On the afternoon of the fire, Frances Perkins was having tea with friends near Washington Square, and her group heard the fire engines and ran toward the smoke. And they watched horrified as nearly 50 workers jumped from the 8th and 9th floors to the street below where they stood. And she took the sorrow and the anger and the energy from that afternoon and carried it with her for the rest of her life. She later said, "There was a stricken conscience of public guilt, and we all felt that we had been wrong, that something was wrong with that we had accepted, or the tragedy never would have happened. Moved by guilt, we banded ourselves together to find a way, by law, to prevent this kind of disaster." And that organizing produced investigations and hearings, and the Factory Investigation Commission, which took testimony from hundreds of witnesses and investigated thousands of workplaces and helped produce a new body of factory safety and labor protections. Frances Perkins went on to become FDR's Secretary of Labor. So was the first woman ever to hold a cabinet position. She helped build Social Security. She advanced the New Deal and the labor agenda. and created federal minimum wage and overtime protections. She helped construct a floor beneath millions of American lives, a floor that is actively trying to be swindled away from you right now. I did a video on that not too long ago, privatizing Social Security. So, March 25th, 1911 was the day the Triangle Factory burned. And we're living through a different kind of fire now. In some ways, it's slower because it looks like just when you happen to get a medical bill, or food costs just never, ever relent, or immigrant families are living in extreme fear. And as I mentioned before, we all have these wages that just don't match the work or the profits that are being made. And a political class that seems much more fluent in grievance than governance. The lesson from Triangle is that suffering can become power when people refuse to let it disappear. Remember names, support workers, defend immigrants, show up to hearings, help someone navigate a system designed to exhaust them. Pick one thing you'll actually finish and give it a shot. Frances Perkins watched workers fall from a burning building and spent the rest of her life building protections meant to keep that kind of disaster from happening again. The people who remember the fire get the final word. That's important to remember in our current crisis moment right now. This is exhausting and mortifying and angering beyond all belief. But the ones who can help see it through to the other side, take rest as needed, recoup, come back to be able to continue on, who can then see it through to the other side and have memory of what really happened, not the gaslighting version, but the version of what really happened, and then can take action to protect against it for themselves and for future generations. Those are the ones who truly get the final word. And that's what we have to remember in these ever-exhausting times and moments where frustration and despair and spiraling are just boiling over. Two things. One, if you need more inspiring stories like this to just give you a different flavor to the day, there's a playlist on my page called Inspiring Stories. Go ahead and watch those videos. Two, if you're wondering what actions you can take as just a real, normal, average citizen with a lot of other things to take care of and do, I have a playlist on my page called The People's Branch. This gives real, practical actions that people can take that will make a real difference. And it spans things from like if you have 5 minutes a week that you can spare, up to if you have an hour a day you can spare, and everything in between, so that it hopefully covers ground that you're able to walk on. Each video in that is a standalone, so it's not a series. You don't have to watch all 11 or 12 or whatever videos are on there. Just pick one that you think sounds interesting from the title or whatever, watch it, you'll probably get an idea. If for some reason you don't get something that floats your boat, pick the next video that sounds the next most interesting, and you shouldn't have to watch very many before you come away with something that you can do. I say it in those videos, but I want to reiterate it here even though this is getting very long. Don't pick the most heroic thing on the list of things to do. Don't even pick the thing that you can do. Pick the thing that you will do. Because one infinitely tiny thing done in the real world is beyond all comparison many times more important than any number of aspirational things that you would like to do, but you just don't ever get to because it is too big or too complex to finish. I'll see you soon.